Have a seat.
Well done. Well done. This is my first time here as well, so please be kind to me, okay? Otherwise, I'll never come back.
So I'm going to try and do Colin's introduction justice, because he's achieved so much over such a short period of time.
Okay.
So
I'm only 21, I just look a bit older.
That is not the cost of entrepreneurship. So you were headhunted at the age of 18, and then you were interviewed by Graham Tyso to be the manager of Hi-Fi Corner.
Yep. And
you ended up buying the company after getting some experience in how to buy companies. That's quite remarkable to do that. And then you sold your first B2B company, but that didn't last very long after the company bought it.
No, the B2B company was a company that I set up with a telephone and some books. And I thought, what can I do with these telephones and the books? I've got experience in hi-fi business, and I found out that insurance companies were giving people out cash for if you had your television stolen or you had your hi-fi stolen. So I said to the insurance companies, I could give you the right like-for-like replacement, because the like-for-like replacement would be cheaper. Because I've been in this business for so long, the price had been coming down 20 years. It was getting hard. 20 years, the price had come down for electronics. If you think about it, a CD player when it came out in the 1980s, and I've got the very first CD ever played on the radio, which is one of my pride and joys. They were about £600 for a compact disc player, and now you can buy them for £49 or whatever. So I was in that margin. It was a low margin business, and the insurance companies were only giving people the equivalent specification, not the cash. So I said, I've got the knowledge because I've got these books. So I set the business up, and that became a multi-million pound turnover, not necessarily profit, but multi-million pound turnover, and I sold it to a PLC. And I was really quite pleased because the biggest customer was a company called Northern Rock, and Northern Rock went bust after I sold it. So the company then soon went bust thereafter because it didn't fulfil the promises that it gave to me, which is we'll buy you, we'll expand the business. It didn't quite do that, unfortunately, and they went bust. And that also inspired me because I realised that people who run PLCs, these people are nice people, but they'd never made, bought something at £1 and sold it for £1.50. I realised that they had come from much larger companies and they were trying to run a medium-sized PLC. And I think it's actually easier, believe it or not, if you've got a smaller company to run a medium-sized PLC than the other way, because you're so used to delegating out sort of work. They didn't realise that when they're in difficulty, they had to cut back from very expensive hotels. They had to do the things that I've had to do in the past, which is pay myself nothing or pay myself less. But you ask a PLC owner whether he's prepared to take nothing for a salary, and you'll suddenly find, no, I'll get another job somewhere else.
Yeah, it's a different kind of spirit. So you went on then to do a doctorate in leadership, and you teach entrepreneurs around the world.
Yeah, well, what happened was then, once I sold the PLC, I was looking for what else can I do. I've still got the retail business. My son's running the retail business. I've got property business, which was doing quite okay. Thank you very much. And what else should I do? And with my time, because I just felt I'd reached my peak. I'd done my master's degree during the time I had the B2B business, because some smart asked, be careful you edit that bit out, person at an insurance company said, Colin, how do you apply expectancy theory of motivation to your employees, and what's the benefit of that to your organisation? And I didn't know what expectancy theory was. So I went to university in my late 40s for the first time, never having done an undergraduate degree, did my Masters of Science in Business and Excellence, and learned all about motivational theories. So I ended up writing a dissertation on motivational theories in a call centre environment. And then when I sold the B2B business, I was going to put together the largest hi-fi retail business in the UK. And when I spoke to the other partners in this, they didn't quite share the same leadership vision. So I went to the university to have a lunch, and ended up coming away, signed up for a doctorate. It's a DBA, a professional doctorate. It was a very expensive lunch, I have to tell you.
Somebody sold it to you?
They sold it to me. And you're in a class with all these academics, and somebody says, "So what's your background?" "Oh, sales." "Oh, can you come and teach sales?" "Yes." "Oh, what's your background? What are you studying?" "Leadership." "Oh, can you come and teach leadership?" "Yes." "Oh, what's your background?" "Entrepreneur." "Oh, can you come and teach entrepreneurship?" So for the last 8 years, I've been a master of nothing and a jack of all trades when it comes to teaching. But I got all these learning materials. I have to learn them better than the students, obviously. You've got to be one step ahead of the students. And it's great fun because I set all these difficult questions for master students, and not knowing what the answer is going to be. I know what the theory is, but I'd like to see how they apply it. And then I suddenly get all these inspirational answers from some really clever students. I go, wow, that's really good. I get some answers that I prefer not to see as well. The most famous one was in a change examination. I did lectures on change for HR, and it says, "Old people can't change." And I thought, where's the evidence for this? Anyway, sorry.
So you will have seen talked to a lot of people and a lot of entrepreneurs over the years then, and you've worked obviously in many businesses. Do you have a theory for what entrepreneurship is?
You have to define entrepreneurship, and that definition can vary from individual to individual. The basis of it is you have to make money, because without money you can't do
You're
anything.
A charity.
You're a hobbyist. So you have to make money. And why you're an entrepreneur, why you classify yourself an entrepreneur is very individual. For me, it was the fact that I don't actually like working for anybody else. I remember when Graham Tysell gave me the job, he didn't actually know anything about hi-fi. And when I went to his office, he was a very good mentor and coach. He moved very clearly from mentoring to coaching, which is very clever of him. But with most of his other employees, he say, "Get me a coffee," and I never learned how to use the coffee machine. I said, "I'm scared of this machine, it makes too many noises." So I got him to make me coffees for years. And I thought, yes, that's actually, I wasn't quite realising, but I'd hate being told what to do. So I'm not particularly a good employee. I'm a good team player, I'm a good business consultant, and if a client says do this, I will do it, and I'll do it really well. But I'm still my own boss. At the end of the day, I can say, go away. In fact, when I started my B2B business, I did a presentation to somebody in Glasgow, and I brought in my books. I said, "I've got all these books," and this chap said, "Well, I've got all these books." And I said, "Well, your books aren't the same as mine, so we could work together in order to do this." And he said, "No, you'll do this and you'll do that and you do that." And I said, I gathered my books, I put them in my briefcase. I had a briefcase at the time, very posh. And I said, "I work with people, not for them." And he was potentially a big client, and I did my briefcase up and I walked out. He came running after me and brought me back, said, "I'm sorry about that," and was my best client for the next 10 years.
Wow.
But it's all to do with working with people, isn't it, really?
So if you just backtrack a little bit, can you define the difference between coaching and mentorship?
Coaching is when you are... Mentoring is a business mentor, someone who will know the answers or have had the experience and will be able to give you advice, which is quite dangerous to do, to give people advice, because advice is normally very specific. My wife was a trainer for many years in a children's helpline, and people would phone up, and she did something called the Carl Rogers technique, and I said, "Well, that's not really advice, because you're not telling them what to do." And I've got really angry with her, because I'm thinking, you're just helping them I'm helping them help themselves, and that's coaching. When you help somebody help themselves. Mentoring is when you sort of say, "I don't know what to do here," and I say, "Right, here you have to form a company." If I do with some students, get onto Company's House, this is what you do. You need to employ somebody, this is what you need to do. So mentoring is much more specific, and coaching is much more about asking the right sort of questions. Yeah. And that's quite skill.
So Graham Tysell, obviously he was alternating through these different...
Yes, well, at the beginning I was 21 and didn't have a Scooby. I didn't know how to work out profit margin. I didn't know the difference between net profit, gross profit, profit margin and markup. And that's fairly fundamentals in business. If you don't know that, what the heck are you doing in business? So he helped me with that aspect, helped me write an invoice. I didn't know how to put the VAT number on an invoice. In those days I had to type out invoices. So he helped me with that. So that's real mentoring. But then he would coach me by saying things like, well, I would come to him and say, "I've got this great idea about opening a branch here or doing this." And he says, talk me through it. Yeah. "So you convinced it's going to work?" "Yes." So, and then he said to me, "Well then, how much are you going to make?" And I'd say, "X pounds." "Okay, so how much is that per day?" And I said, "X pounds per day." And he said, "Okay, so every day you're not doing that, it's costing you X pounds." So if you don't do it for another week, think of the money you've lost. Oh, goodness me, and away and do it. And that's a really powerful way of thinking. If you've got a great idea and it's going to make you £1 million in a year, and you wait a year till you do it, you've lost £1 million.
That's the opportunity cost. The opportunity pain, maybe. And so this is a reason why we should all try and get going as quickly as possible with our idea. How would you recommend people get started? What's the easiest way to get started?
Well, that's actually a very big question. Get started. Well, coming to an event like this is good because you can meet people. Get started. That's too wide a question. You have to be more specific than that, James. I'm sorry, that is, get started in what? Starting a business where you go to a company's house and for £100 you can form a business.
Yeah.
You need to speak to people. You need to, and that graph that you had about starting is really, I read that earlier today, and if you hadn't put that up, I was going to steal that idea and talk it through, but it's really good. It's a really good idea. You've got to get the idea, you've got to formulate the idea, you've got to make it into with people I was speaking earlier, you've got to make it into a simple sentence. So your elevator pitch, which everybody knows an elevator pitch, is something you would do in a lift. In America, you've got much more time to tell it, but in Britain, you have got less time.
Yeah.
And you've got to get that interested. So the elevator pitch is basically, what's my name, what do I do, and more importantly, how it will add value. And you've got to have an elevator pitch practice so that if I come up to you today and say, what's your elevator pitch, you can give it to me. But you've also got to have it so you can change it depending on the audience. And I remember having too much to drink, like the last time I met you, and I was.
So what was my elevator pitch?
It was too long. But I do critiques of elevator pitches, but I'm not going to mark it.
You said yes.
I did say yes. I got it. No, it was good. It was good. But I remember once getting a job, being offered a job, which I didn't take, actually. It was a great thing being in a position not to take jobs, isn't it? When I was at an event, it was a par equity meeting, so it was an angel investors meeting, and somebody came up to me and said, what do you do? And I said, so you're asking me for my elevator pitch? I said, after too many glasses of wine. You should never speak to me when I've had a glass of wine, hence I'm on the water just now. And I said, he said, elevator pitch, what's that? And I told him what an elevator pitch was and said, you should come and speak to my firm because we don't know what an elevator pitch is. So I had a meeting, had lunch with him, and I said, I found out by asking questions, because selling isn't about listening, it's about asking questions, isn't it? I found out that he wanted sales done, he's wanted all these people to do sales. And I said, so what changes are you prepared to make? And no, I'm close to retirement, I don't want to make any changes. And at that point I walked away, because if the top person isn't prepared to change, then there's no point in trying to get the rest of the people to change. It has to lead from the top. You're all going to be, a lot of you be business leaders, and you look to be the example at the end of the day. In fact, when I first went on my first sales training course, was it all right for me? I'm talking too much?
No, keep going.
When I first went on my first sales training course, it was Sony, Hoothwaite training, so I went down for that. And because I thought, I'm going to go first, because the worst thing you can actually do is send someone else in a sales training course. They come back with all these great ideas and you say, oh, don't do that, don't do that, don't do that. You can imagine you've wasted your money on sales training course then. So I thought, I'll go down, find out what it is, so that I'll send other people in the course, and then I can reinforce what they've learned. So the top person should be the first person. So I went down, enjoyed the course so much, had a glass of wine, ended up employing the Sony sales trainer to come up and work for me. And he worked for me for 3 years. And then he went back to England for domestic reasons, and then a few years later asked me to come down and do some consultancy for him. That was an interesting one, because I did something called risk and reward. Have you heard the expression, risk and reward? You do some work for nothing in the hope that you get something. He hadn't been making lots of profits, and he said, I'll give you X percentage of the profits if you change the company around or help me change the company around. After he paid me the first cheque, he didn't want me back again. It was too much. So I was really quite chuffed with that.
Even though it was pro rata, and you were...
I know. He should have kept me on. Absolutely.
Well...
But it was 4 hours away a trip for me, so I was quite happy not to do the journey.
Yeah. So you have seen some surefire business success ideas that haven't actually panned out or haven't worked out. Can you tell us a little bit? Give us an example.
There's one I invested in which was an amazing idea, which was, if imagine this was a house in Australia right now, in the middle of the Australian bush. this idea is you covered this house in foam, you come and spray it with foam. The fire would come, go past the house, and you come back, wash the foam off, and the house would be perfect and untouched. And to me, that's just an absolute no-brainer of an idea that put money in. But could the chap that was there sell it? For reasons that I don't quite fully understand, he couldn't. And he kept asking me for more and more money. And at one point, I just sort of said, I don't know why this hasn't sold. And part of the reason was the person who invented it in America didn't want to part with his invention, because I did a deal where I was going to make this man rich. I got other people involved. We're going to do a buy-to-back. The UK company was going to buy the invention. The guy in America, who was a fireman, was going to be very well off. In the last minute said, I don't want to sell it. And of course, he's not managed to sell it either. And look at because how many fires are in America and Los Angeles, and those houses could be saved by this product. And I know it works because he put his hand in the product, took a blowtorch and put it up to his hand, and it didn't burn his hand. So I know it works. So there's things that look like they're surefire but don't. And again, I suppose it's a lack of sales on that, really, at the end of the day. And there must be other barriers that I didn't see.
Yeah, it's difficult to reverse engineer some things.
But it wasn't a mistake doing it, because it was an interesting experience.
Yeah. And it's a tragedy, really, that a product like that isn't saving houses in Australia right now. And
people don't want to pay for anything more than water. There's an additive to water, and people didn't want to pay a slight premium, but it would have been a lot cheaper than building a new house.
Wow. Well, so it's not necessarily the idea; it's the team and the way it's structured that increases the chance of success. And
there may be other barriers. There might have been environmental barriers, which I don't think in this particular case. But there can be barriers to entry that you're not unaware of until you start going out and trying to sell it. Yeah. So that's why it's a good thing on your chart to actually go out and try and get some customers, because then you find the barriers. I mean, I advised one chap who wanted to start a company, and I sort of said, so have you tried to sell it yet? Oh no, I'm going to employ a salesman to do that. I said, no, I've done that before. I employed a salesman, didn't get anything, so I went out and I got the business, because I found out what the objections were. And the best person to overcome an objection to your business idea is you, a salesman, not somebody you're going to employ. But he didn't want rejection. Nobody likes rejection, but we treat rejection as a game.
And have you trained anyone to get those 100 no's? No is worth.
Well, you learn from the no's. My daughter, some of you may know, I don't just train salespeople, I make them, because both my daughter and my son are superb salespeople.
The daughter's Colin Mackenzie, by the way.
Yeah, my son is Colin Mackenzie, but I had his name as well. So he's a great salesman. Last night he was buzzing with sales ideas of how he's going to make me lots of money. So I always advise you, if you have children, to teach them sales. They'll never be unemployed, because there's always a shortage of good salespeople, and you get a return on investment, because they're going to make you rich. They're going to make you rich, he said into the camera, and I'll edit that bit out for my daughter and my son. Certainly they've made me quite a bit of money, my children, so I'm really delighted with that. But my daughter she does prospecting. You reframe cold calling, so it's never cold calling. Never use the word cold calling. You're prospecting, so you're looking for gold. Okay, so you reframe it in your mind. And the people are saying no. Remember this, they're not saying no to you as an individual, which we all hate. They're saying no to the idea. So therefore, I treat that as a learning opportunity. When I get a yes, what did I do differently? So when I do sales training with organisations, I get people to write down how they get the no's, why people said no, and then we sit and we analyse that, and then they change the script or they change the conversation in order to get more yeses. And then we make sure that they're robust, because at the end of the day, when I do management training, I say always split the person from the personality. I think James might be a great guy, but he might be useless at something else. And I have sacked people, as you do in business. When you've been in business as long as me, you have to invariably sack people. But I've sacked people, and I've had them come back and thank me for sacking them. They said, I didn't really quite get it when you said it's not about me, it's about what I was doing. I didn't quite get that, but now I'm in a much better job. I'm enjoying the job more, and I realised what you're saying. What you're saying is that I just wasn't suited for that job. It's nothing to do with me. But the trouble is, if you're an inexperienced manager, what do? You tend to find excuses. I don't like you, and you try and make people feel like that. And then, of course, you then sack them because you've justified it yourself.
A personal thing.
Whereas I don't think you should ever do that. I think you should never sack somebody who's not expecting it. They should know that the conversation's there. And very often they'll give you the resignation so you don't have to sack them. And it's all about performance. It's not about them. Because I still be friendly with people I've sacked. Why not?
Wow.
Everybody has value.
So you're talking about being suited to a certain role. If we're considering the role of entrepreneurship or starting a business, what attributes do you think that we need to have to make it easier?
Well, I think the attribute of listening is really important, and it's a skill. I'm going to split attributes which are sort of like traits as opposed to skills. Traits are things that we're born with that we can't very often help. I probably have the trait of being awkward, being demanding, asking awkward questions. I probably have that as a trait, and I sometimes have to temper that. But the skill of listening is one that you can learn, and listening is one of the hardest skills. So we all think when I go into a class of people or a consultancy, I say, how good a listeners are you? Everybody says yes. And I said, and you know somebody who's not a good listener? Yes. You go out with the girls in the club, or you go out with the guys in the pub, and there's one guy, like I'm doing just now, doing all the talking all the time. Yes. Well, you might be that person. You might be that person. So listening skills are really important, because unless you listen, how are you going to be able to overcome objections? How are you going to be able to develop your product? How are you going to sell it? Because most selling is about matching your product to a need. And unless you understand what the person's needs are and the implications of that need, how much it's costing them, how can you add value to your product? So listening is one for an entrepreneur. I think having a vision is really important, and not being put off the most powerful thing ever said to me when I was 16 years old, and I was working part-time in a record store that I eventually ended up buying when I was in my 30s. Ended up having to close because it wasn't making enough profit, but that's something else. When I was working in the record store, this author, quite a well-known author, who was down in his uppers, as they say, sort of, said to me, when I get to be old, I do not want to get old and look back in my life and not do anything with it, because that to me is hell. And because I don't know if there's a heaven or hell, but hell would be getting back when I'm old. So at that point, I thought, I'm going to do one major thing a year in my life, so that when I get to be old, getting there, I can look back and say, I've done something with my life, and I have. And sometimes I don't sit and plan it. I didn't sit and plan when I was 16 years old that I was going to end up buying the company, but I've done something. It might be close a business, because to fail quickly is sometimes good, as you know. It might be opening a business, it might be getting married, it might be having a child, it might be getting a doctorate, it might be getting a master's, it might be buying a premises, it might be developing a premises, it might be starting a shop, it might be closing a shop. One thing, so that, and I built a house last year, and this year the year before last I built a house, and this year I built the largest specialist UK store with my son, so that's okay. Yeah.
Where's that store, by the way?
2 Joppa Road, just for anybody who's looking for a hi-fi system.
Yes, I'll stop in next time I'm down there.
Bring a big thick wallet with you.
My checkbook. Yes. Okay. So listening and vision. Is there anything else?
Oh, there's probably plenty that, and as soon as we stop the tape, I'll think, I should have said that, and I should have said that. Listening, vision, knowing the basic figures. If you don't know what profit margin is and markup, go and learn these things immediately. You don't necessarily have to be an accountant. Learning when you've got your own weaknesses, what they are, and hiving them off to the right people. And goal setting is really important as well.
So I'd imagine that if you need to get someone to join your team, vision and listening is important for that.
Absolutely. You've got to also look at yourself and say, what am I really good at? A lot of small business people think they're good at everything. And I had to be a jack of all trades because I was in a very low margin business. So I had to learn advertising. So I'd get advertising people in, learn it so I could do it myself. I had to get IT people in, learn enough that I could get little networks because I couldn't afford them. And PR, I had to learn how to do PR as well. So I've had to learn how to do all these things. But my daughter, who's on a better, more sound business, she says, PR, I've got a PR person does that. Very good PR person. Coaching, I've got somebody who does that. And so it releases her to work on the business rather than in the business, which is really quite clever.
And it creates jobs.
Yeah, and it creates jobs, yes. Not necessarily full-time people. You can you've got to get the right team around you. And that's important, and you've got to change. If the right team are not the people, change. My friend, ex-Sony trainer, person I consulted, we set up a business. And we stopped that business because he wanted to go in that direction, but we set it up on the clear understanding that we were going in that direction, but he wanted to go that way. And I said, well, you've changed the plan. And like you said, get different people. He decided to go that way. So we parted amicably because I said that's not what we wanted, that we agreed to do. And I have difficulties with that. If I agree to do something, I normally can't, I always carry it through. And when somebody says, I'm going to change, and no matter what theories you learn, no matter what expertise you've got, things don't go to plan. And so you've got to have a capacity for changing the plan. Yeah. Just change it.
And what's how do you decide what the best new direction is?
Sometimes it's trial and error, and sometimes you've got to sow lots of seeds and see which one takes. When I started the insurance business, I wasn't quite clear how that was going to pan out, but it turned out by listening to I used the if clause. Everybody familiar with the if clause? The if clause? IF. So the if clause is basically, if I do this, will you do that? So when my rep came back from the insurance business and said, all these people are interested, but I can't get any of them to buy from you, I said, I'll take the time, fly to Reading, met this client, and I said, what's wrong with the existing suppliers? And I got a list of things. And I said, if I don't do any of these things, will you give me a chance? And she said, yes. And they became my best customer for the next 10 years, based on the if clause.
It's very safe. It sounds very safe for the other person.
Well, they've got nothing to lose. If you didn't keep your word, I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
You know, so it's safe. If it's like any negotiation, you never give something away without getting something in return. If I give you that, will you buy today? Yes. Or no, I'm not thinking about buying today. We'll come back when you are, and we'll discuss that.
Okay, well, that's my questions, and now is an opportunity to open up to the room if anybody else has any questions they'd like to ask Colin.
Go on, make them challenging. I'm up for that.
Brendan.
Comment on a question. Comment on the phone product.
Yes.
If you're trying to sell to consumers there, house owners, that's the wrong customer. It should have been insurance companies.
Yes. Yes, it should have been insurance companies. And if I got it into the UK, my idea was to put it into go to insurance companies and say, would you give your clients a discount if they put it into the sprinklers, because it would have worked in the sprinkler system. But I never got that far.
Well, the question is about investing. What attracts you to a nascent idea, and do you diversify? Do you have a strategy for how you diversify?
Well, the moment
Sorry, can you repeat the question? Make sure.
Yeah, Brendan, can you say it a bit louder, because I might get your question wrong.
Yeah. So, what attracts you to a nascent startup investment, and if you diversify, on what basis do you diversify your investments?
I'm not sure that I fully understand that. In terms of what would attract me to an investment, it would be something that I, unfortunately, I think is a good idea. Even if it's people want it and I don't think it's a good idea, I wouldn't necessarily want to invest in it, just because why? Passion is one of the things that it's one of my key motivators in life. I do things because I'm passionate about it. If they want to diversify, I would say, why is that part of the strategy? You'd have to convince me it's part of the strategy. At the moment, most of my investments are EIS ones in the EIS fund at par, because they will give it for me. Most of my current forward investments, I think in the near future will be with my family, because my son last night gave me 20 different ideas, of which I think some of them are absolutely brilliant, and I'm thinking, well, I should have given him money because at least I know him. So And if it fails, then, well, he doesn't want to take my money, but because there's a lot more pressure if you take money from family, have you noticed? Because, one of my proudest moments in my life was when the retail business was having a really hard time, and the bank came in and they were asking for this, that, and the next thing. And my son was starting to take over the reins of the retail business, and I was handling the bank meetings, and I was bringing him in to train him how to handle the bank, which is quite hard to do. And he said, we made a loss last 2 years, but we made a profit this last 2 years. We'd like to pay off the overdraft. Will you release my father's personal guarantee on the building? And they said, no, because there's a long-term loan. And he said, but personal guarantee, the building's worth hundreds of thousands, the stock's worth hundreds of thousands, and we've got a £7,000 loan, and you're not going to release his personal guarantee. And I said, no, it's a term loan, you'd have to pay interest on that. Okay, we'll pay interest on that. And they said, really, you want to pay extra? And I said, yes. Then will you release my dad's personal guarantee? And they said, no, because you've got 2 credit cards with £3,000 on them. And he said, so how do we get rid of those? Well, you could change them to debit cards. Right, we'll do that. So if we get rid of the overdraft, if we get rid of this long-term loan that's only a small balance remaining, if we change our credit cards to debit cards, will we release my father's personal guarantee? And the bank manager said, yes. That's what we're going to do, and we're going to move banks and never deal with you ever again. We've been with them 30 years. So I don't know if I answered you very well, but I'll answer it later.
Yeah. Is there any questions this end of the room?
One there.
Oh, hey, I was really interested in your American firefighter. How might you have kind of persuaded them to, with hindsight, kind of come on board? Because I find that issue a lot with kind of collaborators or sort of potential employees who are very protective of their own ideas. How do you prepare them to kind of take a smaller slice of a bigger pie and collaborate?
It's like anything. It's building rapport and trust. Now, I'd gone over to America, I got drunk with the guy, I spent a week there, I thought he trusted me, it wasn't long enough. And also I should have talked slower. Because he had difficulty understanding my accent. The only way, when I did a Skype, I could make him understand me was talk like John Wayne. And then he said, oh, I understand you now. And I thought we talked the same language. We don't necessarily talk the same language. And I'm sorry, I apologise if I've talked too quickly tonight. I know there's some people from different countries here, so I normally get, if it's a class of international students, I would tell them, this would be the hand signal, slow down, Colin, and I slow down. I get very excited and talk quickly. But it's all to do with trust, and I would have spent longer building up rather than trying to get to the deal. All sales are about trust at the end of the day. All leadership is about trust. So thank you for that question.
Okay, great question.
There's one there.
The ladies.
So you mentioned vision, goal, you mentioned passion. How do you keep this passion over the years despite the challenges and
Oh, because I cheat. Because I do things I enjoy doing, and therefore I've never worked in my life. I've never had a day off sick since I was 18 years old. I have been ill, but normally in holidays. And I remember one time that I was ill, had an office above one of my premises, but it had a bedroom in it because it was like having a townhouse. So I remember making phone calls from the bed. So I'm thinking, I'm not going to be off sick now, you know. So because. And the days that were difficult, and there were some challenging days, are the days that I justified my fee. I thought, I'm actually getting paid for doing this. Is what I'm really getting paid. The rest of the time, it's not. I'm a big kid. I could have made a lot more money if I'd focused just on the money. But it's not about the money. The money is important. It's the end result of doing all the behaviours right. So I was really keen on sound, for example. So I would sell the very best sound equipment. And every time a box came in, it was Christmas, and Christmas every day. I'm the first to open the box up. I still say to my son, he's got these amazing loudspeakers in just now, and I've said to the guys, next time you're doing a demonstration, phone me, because I want to come in just to listen to those. And when I'm speaking to people, when I'm speaking to students, in a class of 20, 30 students, if I get 2 or 3 that say, that was really good, I'm going to remember that. I get a big kick from that. So you can,
sense of achievement.
Absolutely a sense of achievement. Yes. I've said that in a long way, but you're right. Thank you for that.
Arminta?
To what extent would you say it's important to first work for a startup before having your own company? You say you didn't work for anyone else but it depends on every person. So how important do you think it is, I guess my question is, how important do you think it is to work for someone else or to work in a startup before having your own startup?
I think, I wouldn't say it's very important, but it does add a different perspective. I had worked for 2 companies until when I was under 20, and it taught me how not to do things, because they didn't know how to do sales properly, they didn't know how to run the company properly, so I had to learn. It took me longer to learn having to be self-taught than if I'd gone into a really good organisation. My daughter, who's in recruitment, worked for one of the best recruitment companies and won the top prize for best sales, best newcomer. They gave her a cheque and she said, "Thank you very much, I'm going off to Australia with a cheque." They said, "Well, if you do that, you'll not get another job with us when you come back." They came back, offered her another £20,000 more for the same job. She said, "I'm only going to work for you for a year, and at the end of the year I'm going to leave. So I'm starting my own company," because she had learned the skills that she needed. Now my son has been working for the same company more or less since he left school, and he says it would be useful to meet other entrepreneurs. I was hoping he was going to come tonight because he finds it quite useful to meet these people. And I was involved in a PLC in London. It's very easy to set up a PLC, by the way. It costs you share capital costs and a little extra, but anybody here probably in a couple of years could set up a PLC. It's not like you have to be on the stock market for that. So I was part of a PLC, and I kept working with all these older experienced business people, and I kept trying to find out their secrets. Most of them went bust, and I'm still the one in business. They had no secrets, they just were lucky. Sometimes it's luck. Sometimes it's just pure luck if you get the right thing on the right day. I hate to say that because we like to think it's scientific, but it isn't always as scientific as we think. Did I answer your question all right?
Sure.
So I think it's basically, if you can do it and learn. Just make sure you learn.
I think so.
I always like to suggest people that you have a learning blog, a learning diary, and that write down the things you learn. So when you look over it, you'll suddenly go, wow. When I started my professional doctorate at DBA, I had a 3-year learning diary, and at the end of 3 years I looked back and thought, look at the journey I've made. Wow.
Sounds good. Any questions on this end of the room?
Okay.
So it was,
What is the one common mistake people make when they try to motivate people?
the common mistake is that you can't motivate anybody. All you can do is create the conditions for them to be motivated. So there's a big difference there, and not everybody is motivated by money. Not everybody's motivated the same way. I helped a business north of England who had a real problem between the leader and the team, and I said to the leader, I said, "So what motivates your staff?" And she said, "Well, the salary I'm paying them, surely." And I said, "No, go and ask them, and the next time come back to me and tell me what they said." And she was dumbfounded. She had 30 different staff with 30 different motivations, and was completely dumbfounded that it wasn't to do with the salary. And so therefore making an assumption that you know how to motivate people is totally wrong.
Okay, one more question. Alex.
I'm interested in how you've taught your children to be great salespeople and what you could teach us if we were all your children.
Sell me the pen. Before the film made it a bad thing to do, it was
Which
sell me
film
the
was
pen.
that, sorry?
The Wolf one.
Wolf on Wall Street.
Yeah, that was that made give sales a bad reputation. The problem with sales is the definition of sales. Right, everybody here is a salesperson. Everybody's had to sell themselves to get a job. My daughter said she was coming to Napier to give a talk to students on sales, and I was really proud, as you can imagine. She was coming to give sales and why sales is important to everybody. It's important to academics, important to students, important to entrepreneurs. It's really important. I said, "Who's eligible to come into this chat?" And she said, "All the students." Well, I'm doing a DBA, so I'm a student, so I sat in the front row and watched my daughter come in. That was really wicked, wasn't it, to give a talk on sales? That's a terrible thing to do. So she gave this great talk on why sales is important. I thought, fantastic. And a month later I said, "I'm giving a chat to the alumni at Edinburgh University. What is it on?" And I said, "Sales." "And who's it open to?" "Alumni at Edinburgh University." And she said, "Well, I'm an alumni of Edinburgh University." She sat in the front when I was giving my lecture on sales, as you can imagine. And so I thought, right, I've got to equal this somehow, I've got to get this. So I sort of taught people the basis of an elevator pitch. And I said, so this is the basis of an elevator pitch, da, 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 da. And I said, now, as an example, let's get someone to give an elevator pitch. This young lady here, can you give me your elevator pitch? And I point to my daughter, of course. She stands up, gives the best elevator pitch I've heard in a long time. I help new entrepreneurs, I help them find the right accountants for their business, da, 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 da. And at the drinks afterwards, nobody wants to speak to me, everybody's around my daughter. But it was sell me the pen instead of I spy, right? And they got really cross with me because, I would say, so how much would you give me for this pen? In fact, you've got the pen, right? How much would you, can I buy this pen from you? No, we'll not do the exercise just like that. But then they would really be pleased because I sold this pen for £10. I sold the pen, Dad, it's £10. And I would turn around and I would either say one or two things. It's a Mont Blanc, it was worth £300, you should know the value of what you're selling. Or else, it was the only pen that I needed to sign a £2 million contract, and it was the only pen in the country, or the island, and therefore I would have paid £1 million for that pen. Dad, you didn't tell me that. I said, you didn't ask the question. You didn't ask the right questions. So,
okay, we're going to end on that note. So, join me in thanking Colin.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
We appreciate it. It was great.
All right. I'll have my red wine now.
We'll obviously have an opportunity for you to talk to Colin.